I had a request to talk about the back walk in the ballroom dances wearing the heels for the ladies. So of course it's very important that you learn how to move backward without the heels on so that you can get the walk down and improve your skills. It's really hard to do both at once, to learn how to do it in the high heels. So do a little bit of both. They do present an extra challenge for you, just as they do in the Latin, because they put your weight into a different position. Going backwards is not natural anyway, and particularly then when you have the high heels on. So that's how we normally dress up when we go out, we wear the high heels. And in the competitive ballroom dancing, with the lady sort of backward poised through her upper body, she needs to go forward a little bit at her ankles to create the curve, which is a whole other topic. But the curve in the lady is supported by the heel because we're back further than the men are. So the heel lifts us up and puts us in a really very unnatural position, but the heel supports that position. So we won't talk about that too much today, but it is part of the picture. The other thing I want to make a point of before I talk about the walk, because I may forget, is that when you're going straight back and you're swinging back, we always talk about swinging back from the hip, you're not going to be able to get as long a stride as you will when you're dancing from one figure to the other, because we never actually dance perfectly straight. Whenever we go backwards or forwards, we either have a little bit of CBM, so we have a little bit of the body working against the moving leg, or we're going back with a side lead or a shoulder lead, where the same side and the leg are moving back. Now, this rotation through the spine allows us to take a very long stride. So when we're practicing here, I'm going to be talking about the very basic back walk. So I'm not going to be getting into contra-body movements so much and side lead so much, but I will demonstrate how that increases the length of my leg. This is where we begin to feel as though our legs are starting up much further in the body. For instance, as I'm dancing the feather step, inviting my partner to go outside, I may feel then as though my leg is starting up in the armpit of the right side, or I may feel as though my leg is connected to the opposite shoulder. And you can see there that I'm not only swinging my leg back, but it's also taking that side of my hip with me. If I'm doing a CBM action, like that, so my one hip is moving away, the other hip is moving forward, I'm able to achieve a very long leg line. So my leg now feels that it's very, very long. When we're moving forward, and we'll talk about that in a separate video, we're moving forward here from the true transition point of the upper and lower body, which is where the flexor, the leg moves into the hip. Now, sometimes we will be moving forward and then we'll have a pickup of the hips. Then this area is full. But when we're moving forward, generally it's this free swinging action from the hip. When we're moving backward, we talk about moving from the hip instead of stepping back from the knee. But as I said, if you're square, if you try to take a really long step and stretch back from the hip, you will feel a pinch in your back. So as soon as you can, when you're trying to increase the stride, you want to introduce some contra-body movement. So just a note there, because when I do demonstrate a simple back walk, fairly straight, you will not see those extra long strides. But I still want all the time not to dance from my knee. So I'm going to go through a few basic exercises that you can do. And the first one, of course, if you're a beginner, is just put the heels on, walk backward a comfortable step, and just try to get used to rolling back through the foot. We must release our toes if we're doing the ballroom dances, because we're looking for a natural rocking movement from foot to foot with the body simply in an upright position. If I were in a more forward poise, then I might be pulling the toes. So we use this, what we call apalado, often in the Argentine tango. When we dance our Latin dances, we have a different poise, little different heel structure, and so we're always using the toe last on the floor. If I were up, I would be using the toe last. But in a walk, we're always releasing the toe and letting the heel very lightly scrape the floor. The best expression I've ever heard really for that is like striking a match. When you strike a match, it's very quick and it's very light and you're done with it. So you do not want to grind your heel into the floor. Now also at this point, I've put myself in a very artificial position with my foot. I'm going to gouge the floor with my heel and my leg will be hyperextended and that will force me into my back heel. So you can simply do this stroking exercise. If the foot is relaxed, draw it back, swing it forward, and just feel that there's a light striking of the match with the heel. Release and keep the foot relaxed. So we'll be drawing the heel back and then allowing the foot to be relaxed on the floor and then swinging back from the hip. Again, the foot is relaxed. At the extent of the stride, I'm going to extend the ankle and reach. So it's a good idea to practice that on the spot. Stand there, do the little leg swing to the toe and to the heel, to the toe and to the heel. This alone can be quite a challenge to your balance. And to the toe and to the heel, to the toe and to the heel. And then just walk backward, releasing the toes. I'm not trying to get a long stride, I'm just trying to keep the body upright and roll back through the foot. As you become more comfortable with that, you can increase the stride. Another exercise I always give, and I really prefer the ladies do this in a flat shoe, a dance sneaker, anything that's comfortable, and where you hold on to something to give you some balance, and find your place in the middle of the feet in a triangle. So have released my front toe, and my back heel is not driving into the floor. Whenever we're moving from foot to foot, there's always a moment where we're in that triangle, where the weight is being transferred foot to foot. So we're not on one foot, landing on the other foot. We're in the stride, we're in the split, and then the legs come together. So the legs are opening and closing, always passing through a place where that back heel has not arrived to the floor too quickly. Swinging, finding the center. Swinging, finding the center. Swinging the leg. Now, if you don't have a partner right now, use your arms in the opposite direction to help you in your balance. That's another thing we may practice in the leg swing. You see, it's always the opposite arm and leg. Now, of course, if we're going into a movement with a shoulder lead, then we would have the same side. But that's for another day. So now let's look, if I want to increase the stride, focusing now on the balance here and extending my ankle, extending from the ankle so that you're using this part of your foot. Now you can see if I would take my leg back, let's do it on this side, and I have not extended my ankle, if I don't move my leg anymore, but I stretch my foot, I've gained 5 or 6 inches in the stride. And then in advanced dancing at this point, I may increase my stride through the push-off. I think we'll leave the push-off out of this video because it's getting into more advanced territory. But I did want to bring that up because a lot of students try to push too soon. So when we walk forward, it's a little bit more easy to understand because it's a more natural movement. But the same thing is true in moving back. We begin to shift our weight in our foot. We begin to shift the weight from the center of the foot either to the front of the foot or to the back of the foot. We're changing a little bit our poise, and we're beginning to move our weight. Before I move, I have an intention to move, or I'm going in my imagination. My spine begins to move. As my spine begins to move, now the back of my foot is beginning to fill. The natural reaction, because I don't want to fall down, is for me to begin opening my legs. The last phase is the push-off. So many times our students will get fixed on pushing off, and they'll start exactly to do that. And in fact, the push becomes the first thing and the only thing they do. So now you have a very hard movement, and the men will always say they feel that the girl is falling away or pulling them. So I'm going to move my center. You can see here, normally already you see as soon as I begin to move my center, my leg would begin to swing. But so that you can see it, I'm moving my center, allowing my leg to react. And as the push-off phase enters, then I will open the legs wider. You can see there that I'm immediately going to strike the match and bring the foot together. The tricky thing now, you've got a very small heel, so I say do a jazz shoe or a dance sneaker for a while. I need to control that back heel so that my weight is not driving back to the heel. The heel must gradually lower. Now, of course, there's the exercise of doing that. There's also the exercise where you can, again, hold on to something, have your swinging leg, and then rise on the standing leg and just practice the heel touching down as the legs come together. So if I'm just doing this up and down, I'm just going to feel the timing of my legs with the heel touching down. Now, if I had a jazz shoe on, you would be able to see more space, obviously, between my foot and the floor, my heel and the floor. But when we learn to dance in the heels, we don't have that much space. But a lot of the ladies will wobble in the heels if you're not used to them. So work in a jazz shoe, use a tennis shoe, or you can use your bare feet. I think it feels better in a shoe. You can also wear the coaching shoe or the practice shoe. And just practice those elements. The swinging of the leg, the heel touching the floor as the leg swings by, the action of extending the ankle, standing in the midpoint, and you can use something to hold on to there, and then let go. Of course, you're not going to have to stand there when you're dancing, but it's good practice for your muscles working. Then put it all together. And as I said, don't try to take super long steps because of the way we're constructed. When you're perfectly square, I can't get a longer stride than that because then I'll be doing it all through my back. That is the extent of my leg from the hip in a straight position. I understand this is one of the reasons in listening to Peter Eggleton's lecture on the development of ballroom dancing, how the outside partner and the CBM developed, because they were dancing square to each other, and they were dancing in line all the time. And what happened within a few steps, the ladies' steps got shorter and shorter and shorter, and the men were running them over. We start introducing outside partner steps, putting this rotation in the body. Suddenly we are able to extend our legs. So I think that's something that needs to be explained to beginners. As I said, when I'm just demonstrating this walking back without lots of contra body action, my stride does not look very long because it's only the length of my leg in this restricted position. But you see now, as I dance my extension into the feather step, or preparing a natural turn, adding in a lowering action. Now you can see that my body becomes part of that leg action. So don't be discouraged if you can't take really big steps. You're not going to dance square with your partner. I'll come back later and do one on the forward walk. I did have a request for both back and forward in the heels, and I have done some other videos without the heels, just explaining the basic fundamentals of the walk.